All right, so welcome to this next video. This next video is about how to make a scientific claim. And there's a technique that we're going to use for this called CER. Now before I get into it, we're going to talk about when we're going to use this. So whenever you make a scientific claim, that could be in the conclusion of an experiment we're doing in class, or it could just be in your everyday life if you want to argue some sort of point. If you ever want to back it up with evidence and use reasoning, that actually makes your argument a lot stronger. So you might actually find this useful for your everyday life in case you're like having an argument with friends or something. So CER stands for claim, evidence, reasoning. And the reason it's called CER is because the scientific argument is made in 3 steps. We're going to go through those 3 steps, claim, evidence, reasoning, for you right now, and then we're going to practice it in class.
Okay, so the first part of it is the claim, and this is the place we're going to make a statement that answers some question. So the question, if you remember from class, is your hypothesis typically. By the time you run through an experiment, now you're going to make a claim. So an example we have is, Leo Messi is the best soccer player in the world.
So keep in mind, we're actually using a non-scientific application for this one, just to sort of make it easier.
Well, plus also to show you that this doesn't have to only be like, ooh, I did it in science class.
Because isn't everything that we do science anyway?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, you want to take this one?
Yeah. Now, for evidence, that's really the data that supports the claim. And as we talked about, if you remember from a scientific method, data is the information you gather from an experiment or you gather from your research. In this case, the data that supports the claim. You make this claim, and now you're like, here's the data that I have. Data needs to be appropriate for that. You need to have enough of it. You can't just say like one thing. You really want this to support your argument. In this case, let's say that he won Player of the Year for the last 3 seasons. He scored 91 goals in 2012, the most ever in a year.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's a lot more than I did, like 91 goals more. He won 3 Champion League titles, and he's won 6 Spanish League titles. Pretty solid. Those are all good pieces of data that do back up your claim.
He also wore a terrible tuxedo when he was accepting the Player of the Year last year. I felt like including that. Now finally, so that's the evidence. Notice we haven't really talked about why that evidence is important. The part where you do that is the reasoning. So the reasoning is the explanation for why that evidence is actually important. And this is, sometimes opinion makes its way into this part, and that's okay. A lot of the time when you're doing it in science, it's really not. There's a lot of different scientific laws and theories we're going to be using. In this case, it does kind of become an opinion thing. So we sort of talked about, in order to be considered the world's best player, you need to be able to score a lot of goals, you need to win a lot of titles, and you need to get international recognition. So I have a whole thing listed down there. You can pause and read it. I'm not going to read through the whole thing in interest of time. But here you see I have explained why it is important, why all those characteristics that I said in the evidence are important and support my claim. The reasoning is really what takes your claim and takes your reasoning and ties it all to, or excuse me, your claim and your evidence and ties it together. It talks about why that evidence backs up that claim that you've made. So go ahead.
I was going to say, the key thing to remember is you want to stick to your evidence. So like if you haven't listed it as evidence, you don't want to kind of pull something out of left field and end up with something randomly new that you never talked about before.
So this is what a CER looks like in full. So if you want to pause and watch the whole, or read the whole thing, go for it. But I've actually taken the claim at the top, I've put the evidence in the middle, and made another paragraph with the reasoning. It's worth mentioning that there might be some cases in class where there's one piece of evidence you need just to prove your claim. This just is a kind of an opinion question, because I know some people out there might think Ronaldo's the best player in the world or something like that. Yeah, I disagree. I'm sorry, I disagree with you. But when it becomes to more opinion-based things, it is good to list as much evidence and reasoning as you can to make your argument stronger. But as I said, in science, these might be as simple as 3 little sentences, these CERs. All right? So that's all we have today. We're going to practice these a lot in class in the next few days.
Year. Yeah, we'll be using them throughout the whole year as well, but we will practice them a lot in the next couple of days.
Next few days we'll specifically be doing that, but you're going to be, anytime you make any claim in this class from now on, you need to use what we call a CER format. And you're actually going to be able to do this without even really thinking about it once you get used to it.
Yep.
All right, so have a good day.
Later.
Peace.